ketamine, I'm just going to pull up the Wikipedia definition here. You find this really interesting in the sense that this molecule is used ubiquitously as an anesthesia.
Yes.
And it's also, this is really cool, right here, the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. I did not know that. That's huge.
It just allows them to see that event, not react to it, and then kind of just work through it. And then other people said they kind of almost get a kid-like feeling back again, where they get the hope and energy back again, where it's like, it's not all doom and gloom, and they don't become hyper vigilant all the time.
Hey folks, another episode of the Hard to Kill podcast coming at you, and I am chatting with Jo Ann Kortman today. She's a retired police officer and mental health treatment pioneer. She has her own company, A Healthy Mind, that works in collaboration with mental health clinics in order to get the proper guidance they need, and works extensively with veterans and retired police officers. And I also have another guest with me. Her name is P, for anonymity's sake. She's a 17-year veteran with the Canadian Armed Forces and is now an advocate for ketamine therapy and how to live with PTSD. So, ladies, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you discuss this type of therapy and how you're helping folks in a novel environment get over and start working through their psychological traumas. So, Jo Ann, why don't we start with you? And what brought you to the ketamine treatment that you're so passionate about, and if you could give us a little backstory to that and what you're up to, that would be great.
Yeah, so I was a police officer for about 8 years and developed PTSD through moral injury at my workplace. And I found what got me better was EMDR therapy, which is still kind of new to some clinics, right? Or new to some psychotherapists. And it just really made a huge difference in my life. I then had the opportunity to establish an inpatient mental health center in Gore's Landing. And what I really wanted to do was take evidence-based modalities and combine it with holistic. So we had things like Reiki and massage therapy and dolphin neurotism, which is a machine, not a real dolphin. But during that time, I was really kind of open to what else was out there. And in 2020, Health Canada approved ketamine IV for drug-resistant depression. So I, was making some connections, and I found a really great doctor out of Markham who was willing to kind of work with us on that. And we became the first inpatient treatment center in Canada to open up with ketamine IV. That was in the fall of 2021. And so I did that for about a year, and then I realized I really wanted to do like a front line kind of approach. I was a police officer for 8 years. My husband is a paramedic for over 20 years. So I had a lot of experience and a lot of interaction with first responders. And then while I was doing the mental health clinic, I also found I just made a lot of connections with veterans as well. And so I wanted to kind of work with veterans and first responders. I feel like there's still quite a lot of stigma out there about mental health and people suffering. So the reason why I picked ketamine is because it's so quick treatment for people with PTSD. So for example, like after your first treatment, you can feel up to 80% better. Right. And that's usually 80% of the people who do ketamine IV. There's tons of studies in the United States on it. So I kind of researched that a lot. But I realized in Canada, there's not really a lot of information, or there's not a lot of people out there kind of talking about it or promoting it. So there's lozenges, which again is 40 to 50% effective, but ketamine IV is 80% effective for people who use it. And it takes about 6 treatments, and then you have psychotherapy as well afterwards. I was really interested in working with veterans because it is fully covered by VAC. Our program we've set it up with VAC that basically all you do is reach out to me and I take care of everything. You fill in a form and we send everything off to VAC to get approval. Now, you can edit that out. I'll just quickly tell you the process because it is quite interesting. So you fill in a form
Please.
for myself online.
Yeah.
I then pass it off to the doctor I work with. He will look for medical reasons to see if you're not a candidate for ketamine. And that would usually be if you have like uncontrolled high blood pressure or something serious going on. And then we pass that on to our psychiatrist, and then he will write the letter saying, yes, you're approved or no. And then that psychiatrist will send that directly to VAC. We have the department that we work with directly. And then usually we get turned around within 1 to 2 weeks. So it's actually quite fast.
Okay.
And we're able to set you up with an appointment within probably about a week or two afterwards. And you do need to travel to the place in Markham, but that is covered by VAC for travel cost and hotel cost, which is right across the road from the clinic. And yeah, I've had about, I want to say maybe 20 veterans go through. And from everyone I've talked to, it's made a significant difference in their lives.
So let's go back a little bit. We covered a lot of ground there. So I just always like going through the definition of terms. Right off the bat, EMDR, for those that don't know, what is that? Because that's where you kind of got your start. What's EMDR?
EMDR is
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yes, that's it.
All right. Okay, cool.
So basically, so that's actually a great treatment as well for PTSD if it can work for you. But basically what that does is it takes a situation and it's on a high burner and it kind of reduces it to just a low burner. So it's like right now I can picture what happened to me and some of the situations that happened to me, but I don't have a reaction to it. It's there, but I'm not like before. I would cry every day. I was very suicidal. It really blew apart my life, right? Like it was the 2 years I spent, with PTSD, you're never really over it, right? You learn to live with it.
It's an injury. Like I compare it to just like a broken leg. Like you can walk on your broken leg after, but if you take an X-ray, you'll see that your leg is broken. Right?
Yeah. So that's what I did, which was great for me. Like it really worked, and we did that at the mental health clinic as well. We had EMDR available as well.
Okay. So that was kind of like step one. You realized, hey, this is working well, and then you moved on to the next steps. Now, ketamine. I'm just going to pull up the Wikipedia definition here. So background on me, I'm a chemistry nerd. I did my university as a biochemist. So I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I studied this stuff, which was pretty neat, but I mean, my organic chemistry skills are long gone. However, I do find this really interesting in the sense that this molecule is used ubiquitously as an anesthesia.
Yes.
And it's also, this is really cool, right here, the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. I did not know that. That's huge. So this is something that is not just, because my initial view of ketamine was that it was just a recreational drug, special K, right? That kids would snort and get blasted on, right? But as with everything that we're kind of finding out now, all these quote unquote recreational drugs are starting to kind of turn into really good treatment methods. Yes. But maybe you could speak to this. From what I understand, ketamine is it still a Schedule 1 prohibited drug in Canada?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So ketamine has to be administered by an anesthesiologist, and that's who I work with. And he has to have she has to have an approved Health Canada clinic, and he does.
Gotcha.
And ketamine's been used in anesthesiology for over 50 years, right? So I guess some of the studies in the beginning were showing that when people were coming out of surgeries, they were stating that they were happier, not because of whatever the surgery fixed or took out or whatever, but they were happier because of something. And so they kind of made that link between that and ketamine. And then ketamine is also used as a horse tranquilizer because that's where a lot of people kind of connect the two. And then it is also, it's a street drug. And so like when I told my husband, who's a paramedic, that I was getting involved in ketamine, he's like, what? Like I pick people up. Like, what are you doing with that? But it just is, what it does is it fires up your neurons and makes new connections. So it kind of retrains your brain a bit. And my experience with it, with the clients I've had, is that they've had really traumatic, like terrible, terrible stuff that has happened to them, whether in their childhood or on the job or something. And it just allows them to see that event, not react to it, and then kind of just work through it. And then other people said they kind of almost get a kid-like feeling back again, where they get the hope and energy back again, where it's like, it's not all doom and gloom, and they don't become hyper vigilant all the time.
Interesting. I had a conversation with a fellow veteran that did the ketamine therapy, and his story was really interesting because he was dealing with the guilt of not being able to save his buddies. And he said he was able to go have an out-of-body experience where he was able to see the entire situation in Afghanistan unfold and realize there was nothing that he could do. And it gave him just that ability to take a step back and say, oh, I did everything I could. It's not my fault. And then he was able to move on and become a lot more accepting of what happened. And I thought that was fascinating because if I understand correctly, ketamine, it's used as a anesthesia, but in treatment, is it meant to put you unconscious, or are you supposed to be awake and lucid and be able to kind of work through and talk through what's going on? Yeah, can you walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. With the ketamine IV, you won't be able to have like a psychotherapy talk session because you are basically having a trip, if that makes sense, right? So what our doctor does is he starts off at a very small dose, which is like 0.5. And then the next appointment, he'll kind of talk to you and tell you how it was, what was it like, what did you experience? And then he may increase it. So he's there, you're monitored throughout the whole session. There's a nurse there, the doctor checks in on, you're hooked up to a heart monitor as well as a blood pressure monitor, I believe, as well. And it's like, you would take the ketamine. Well, the doctor administers it to you, but you have a bit of a trip. Some of my clients have told me that, they couldn't feel their feet, that they saw a bunch of rainbows. One client told me that they saw their birth, you have a trip, right? But it's a very controlled, safe environment. So you're in a room by yourself. There's low lights on. We recommend music for you to listen to. We would tell people, bring your own music, but then I didn't want people showing up with Metallica or Iron Maiden or something like that.
Hey, don't hate on Metallica. Come on, Jo Ann. Come on. If that's my music, come on. It's got to be light. It's got to be light and airy. Is that it? We got to get a little bit zen with things.
Sandman,
don't want to enter Sandman.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We'll play by your rules, I guess. It's a very safe environment. And you really do have to kind of you have to say, you're not going to be able to control it. So if you go into ketamine IV thinking you're going to control that experience and you're going to control what you see and what you don't see, you can't control it. Out of all my clients, I've just had one client who had, it was his last session. At the end of the session, he had a bit of a panicky kind of moment, but he was okay within 5 minutes afterwards. And that was just something he saw that kind of disturbed him, but it was something to do with himself and life and death and everything like that. So that kind of upset him, but I haven't had anyone go into the first trip or the second session or third session and come out and say, oh my God, that was horrible, right? Like that was terrible. I saw all this stuff. No, I've had people come up to me and say, again, I saw this really traumatic event and I'm okay because I know I can now deal with it and work through it. I have had other clients who have, been crying throughout the session, but it's not like they're upset when the session ends. So with ketamine IV, what happens is the after effects usually only last for about 20 minutes, and that can include you feeling a bit nauseous. But it's not like you sit there and think back on that, oh, I was crying for 20 minutes. It's almost as if they don't quite remember it. And then what it allows them to do is when they're in the psychotherapy session later on, and we do say it needs to happen within 24 hours, and we do it over Zoom or in person, whatever the person would like, you're able then to actually absorb what the therapist is telling you and the modalities that they're trying to kind of work with you on, right? So it allows your brain to actually absorb even more. So as I said, it can be life-changing. I had a client who never left their house for 2 years to moving across the country and starting a new life. Wow.
So, and another great thing about ketamine too is that from my experience in talking to the anesthesiologist is if it's not going to work for you, you'll know pretty much in the first first session to second session if it's not going to work for you. And if it's not going to work for you, it doesn't make you worse. So it's not as if you go in there with drug-resistant depression or anxiety, and it's going to become worse. It may hurt someone because they were hopeful that, like, it would hurt them emotionally because they were hopeful that that was their opportunity to get better. And maybe that wasn't, it just didn't work for them. That I could see would be like disappointing and kind of a bit of a struggle, but physically and mentally, it won't make you worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. There's no physiological damage. There might be some some ego damage, but that's always repairable. Okay. Makes sense. So clarify for me, the only place in Canada right now that's providing this therapy is the clinic in Markham. Is that correct?
So we're the only one in the GTA area who does ketamine IV with psychotherapy. There are other ketamine clinics, but they do the lozenges. And the thing with the lozenges is that you're not quite sure exactly how much you're going to absorb.
Right. Because it goes through your gut. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Because it goes under your tongue. So, okay. But the IV goes directly into your arm and you're monitored. So Dr. Ezer is the first one in the GTA area who does it. There are, and I have made connections between that clinic and Greenstone and Trafalgar Rehab Center. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. Nope. They're north of Toronto. They are a VAC-approved residential center. And they are now taking on the ketamine IV as well through our clinic and then through myself. But for an outpatient program, he's the only one who does it that I know of in Toronto. And I've tried to do quite a bit of research and I haven't found anyone yet. But yeah, he's the only one that does it. So he provides therapists to the clients, no problem. Like, we have about 4 psychotherapists on staff. We actually have a medical doctor who trained to be a psychotherapist as well. So he knows like the physical, chemical kind of aspects of ketamine as well as the psychological aspects of ketamine. And then, we have a psychiatrist on staff as well that he's the one who would recommend the treatment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's cool is that VAC is on board now. So
yes, yeah.
The door has now been opened to that modality of treatment. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it just takes knowledge that it exists so that you can actually go through the process to see if it would be something that'd be beneficial for you to get over your PTSD, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, because what I find is some clients will reach out to me and they'll say, well, I talked to my case manager and they had no idea about this. And I tried to call VAC and they have no idea about this. Well, VAC is huge and so is Blue Cross. So it's, for us, we have a direct line straight to the department that says, yep, here you go. And we've actually been told by VAC, like, they're happy to help. They're happy to support this. Yes, there's some paperwork that needs to be done. But as I said, we take care of that for you. And you just really have to reach out to me and I can get you guys started. No problem.
Okay. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that. Yeah. No, that's a great update. I love hearing new modalities that are available. It's just, a lot of times it's just hard to promote them on a wide scale, especially because you're not going to start an ad campaign on Facebook to get this up and running. So word of mouth is really key. And so I'm really happy to spread the word on that. And so P, let's move over to you. And you obviously have experienced the power of this therapy. So I'd love to hear what your story was like and what brought you to ketamine therapy.
Ketamine therapy. I'm trying to think. I did originally. You can hear me, right? I'm just going to
loud and clear. Yeah, loud and clear.
Perfect.
Radio check over. Yeah, we're good.
I hit it, but I wasn't sure. How did my ketamine journey? I think it began with a video. It's funny. It was a Brockman was her name, and it was a TED Talk on ketamine. That's how I started. A girlfriend showed it to me, a police officer, and I just got interested in it and started checking it out. And then all of a sudden, another friend posted on Facebook about the ketamine clinic that Jo Ann was involved with and passed her number on to me. And then I gave her a call and went from there. And it was, so I have tried both the lozenge and the IV. And if I had to pick, it would be the IV, hands down, for sure. And that's how it took me on my journey to start with them. I'm trying to think of when we started. I think it was just before Christmas, but unfortunately I could only get one session in, where it's nice to have them back to back. So I continued after Christmas. My turning point, I would say, is the third session. Was huge. It was night and day, and I use the word ineffable because you cannot describe what it does. It's beyond words, to be honest with you. Like, I can't even explain it. It's like you're, I wouldn't say reborn, but like Jo Ann was mentioning, the energy and things like that. Like, it's just, you have hope. I think that's the big word, is hope. I didn't have any hope prior to ketamine. There was nothing. Every day was just doom and gloom. And I actually, the next day after the first session alone, was a teeny tiny, and it was so minute but so profound to me, was I got in my car to go somewhere, and I don't go out often either. I have issues with that. Got in my car, and it was like the day was just a little bit brighter, if that makes any sense. It was like a little bit of a lift in your step, and the day was brighter, and I'm like, this is weird. I don't know, didn't know what to make of it. And it just, after the third session, it was just got better. I couldn't recommend it enough, honestly. I wish, and there's times that I have been in the journey thinking, I wish everyone could experience this. I really do. It's such a warm, welcoming, inviting environment, and it teaches you just pure love, and like that there is hope and love out there. And it's really difficult to explain.
Yeah, that's often with the individuals I've spoken to that have done other psychedelic journeys, ayahuasca, psilocybin. The way they describe it is it's out of body, but to the point where it's almost religious, where there's like a coming to some greater power. And, typically whatever culture you kind of grew up in, whether it's Judeo-Christian, that's what so that's what you link it to. But ultimately the experiences seem very similar. Would you say that there was kind of like this opening up of your heart to something new that was bigger than yourself? I'm curious to know what that kind of felt like for you.
Very, very much so, because my issues are predominantly safety. So it's trust and letting go. And for me, that was going in, I was really nervous about that, because I have tried psilocybin, monitored, and I can block it. I don't understand how, but I actually have no effects. I can just keep taking them and I can block it. It's something in my subconscious. So I was concerned that ketamine would be the same. I can block ketamine to a degree. It overwhelms me, but I can't. The
force is strong within you.
It is. Yeah. It's like I'm there, and I'm still fighting it. And I hope one day that I can just let go, but that's just part of my own journey. But when I'm in there, yes, your heart is open. I've always mentioned that I felt dead inside for many years, and that's how it was. And that feeling was gone. It was just like an acceptance feeling, a warming feeling, a connection to everything. Like you mentioned, the universe, a very spiritual journey for sure. Definitely. I did have the rebirth experience that Jo Ann was mentioning. And I did not know at the time. Like, I knew what I saw, but I'm skeptical also, being military. I'm like, this can't be real. You kind of go through that. But I couldn't breathe during the session, and it never dawned on me. Like, I kept gasping for air. And during the psychotherapy afterwards, I was born with the umbilical cord around my neck, and I never even dawned on me. So I was actually experiencing the trauma of being born, which was huge, really huge. Put a lot away with that, a lot. Yeah.
That's wild.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're only just scratching the surface as human beings to get a grip of kind of who we are as individuals, but also as a species, and what we're able to grasp and what realms. I mean, it's weird that I'm talking about this too, because, I was typical infantry officer type, reality is black and white, get her done attitude. If you do any drugs, you're a degenerate. And now I'm, smoking weed and enjoying life and doing like microdose mushrooms. And it's really been eye-opening. And it was really thanks to folks like yourself that I've spoken to that have just opened my eyes a little bit, that doesn't need to be any stigma around these drugs. If they're done with intention, I think that's kind of the biggest gap that we've had. These drugs are a way to heal. They're a medicine, but we often use them and abuse them. So would you say that, like, since your experience, have you had any other experiences that may have not been like guided in a clinic? Have you carried on kind of the practice of setting an intention and using a psychedelic in the future?
I will continue on. There are top ups with ketamine, so you
Oh, okay.
can go every so many weeks. I had some crisis issues that happened, and I kind of fell off the wagon there for a little while. But I'm going to get back into the process again and keep up with my maintenance ones, because I didn't fall all the way back where I was, but you can feel it wear off after a certain period of time. So going, and I think it's determined by each individual person of how often you need to go. It may not be, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. Everyone's different. For
Hmm.
me at the time, we were trying to figure it out. It looked like it was about 6 weeks for me. I've stuck with just ketamine. I haven't gone back to psilocybin because I had that blocked. I have considered ayahuasca just recently because I was on a soldier on event and actually spoke to someone about that. But I think, to be honest, out of everything I've tried, ketamine is the thing that helped me the most.
Okay. Well, shout out to Ryan Carey and Carlos Duran at Op Purify for their new program that's taking veterans from all over the planet down to Colombia for an ayahuasca journey. So,
Oh, wow.
I can definitely help you out. Get in touch with them. They're great people, and I'm actually going to see Ryan today, actually. So, there's a big movement that's happening now. Me and Jo Ann were just talking about this off camera. That I think it's the first responder and veteran community that are going to be the pointy end of the spear in terms of changing the way that we look at psychedelics and the way that we treat ourselves in order to heal. Whereas the current model is really not working. And the reason why I say that is because our veteran suicide rate has not decreased. And therefore, if you look at that like an objective measure, we're failing. And it seems like, because I can just only speak to what I've experienced by the folks that I've talked to, that individuals like yourself that take the risk of trying something novel like a psychedelic, well, it's hard, I guess ketamine wouldn't be considered a psychedelic, but a novel treatment method, and getting results is, I think, the path that we have to go down. But we need to advocate for ourselves and make that reality happen. And I know, speaking to a ton of veterans in the US, they're all in on this and they're lobbying Congress. And I think we need to do a lot similar type events here and have something that can actually give the best advice and like boots on the ground information that, hey, like this is actually work. If your goal is to ensure a proper standard of care, maybe we need to open these programs up. And it seems like VAC is already on board, and now it's just a matter of kind of advocating a little bit more for it. So, Pete, would you say that this type of treatment has also corresponded to, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but I'm just trying to get an idea of what's going on with most folks that try these therapies, and I'm referencing Toby Miller, who was on my podcast just recently talking about his ayahuasca journey. He had 26 medications he was taking every day. He went down to one after he did his ayahuasca journey. His mind is clear, like he's able to kind of get through life in a much easier way. Was that a similar experience for you, if you don't mind me asking?
Absolutely, yes. I did reduce one medication, and I'm currently working on getting off of the other one. But like I said, we had some crisis times, so I unfortunately had to increase again for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But my goal is to go down on all medications. I do have friends similar to what you were saying with your friend. He was on 28 pills and takes nothing now. That's huge. I have issues with my stomach and all kinds of stuff because of everything I've taken over the years. It adds up. So, you have those like the acid reflux, lots of different effects from the medication. We don't get that from ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great side effects is ketamine. I have an issue. I throw up every day because I live in fight or flight. It's just kind of where I am. And the best part about ketamine is they give you Zofran. So it's always a nausea-free day for me. And that's the bonus side effect, which is really good.
Okay.
I find with ketamine, what I find personally, because I belong to a bigger group, a support group of veterans, first responders, EMS, everybody there. We run cohorts, or they run them. I go and mentor sometimes. And in speaking to people about ketamine and police officers, the stigma is huge. It's like, we arrested people for this, Pauline. How can I even in trying to introduce cannabis to them, it's like a foreign, and it's getting over that. And I have like a lot of police officer friends, and I think I've only gotten one close to going to ketamine and trying it. It's just a really hard thing, I think, mentally to get past. Once you get past it, it's okay. Because I honestly didn't touch drugs, nothing at all. So it took a while for me to let it sink into that. What I was doing is, it's okay. We can do this now. It's not against everything that we've been told our whole life, especially in the military, right? I mean, you just didn't, and that's so to go against what we've been taught. It's a little bit hard, but once you get past it, it's well worth it.
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing I've noticed that, and you brought it up, the cultures in the police world and the military world are different. We do experience high levels of post-traumatic stress, but I think because police officers, people are going to take this the wrong way, but they do their jobs every day. Whereas the military, we practice our jobs every day, and only on very small like portion of the time we're actually in the military do we actually go to war and like do our job. That's where I was like, I'm doing my job, mom, like when I was deployed to Afghanistan. But police officers get to see on the ground the effects of drugs. The military doesn't really. So I think the culture is a lot bit more permissive within the veteran population. That's probably why there's so many veterans that are on board. And like you said, the police world is a little bit more hesitant, and I understand that. And so it's just going to be, time and patience and people like yourself that are advocates that can show that it's fine. I'm better. It's not, I'm not doing it recreationally. Like I'm not going to be strung out on the side of the street and you're going to have to pick me up. We're working on this as a form of treatment. So that's great. Thanks for sharing everything there, Pete. It was really it's really good to hear just firsthand accounts of success and improvement, because that's ultimately one of my theses, is that post-traumatic stress, and I got this from Tom Satterley, who was on the podcast too, who talks about post-traumatic recovery. So just like it's an injury, he suffers from post-traumatic stress, but he's recovering. And the analogy that I use, where it's like a broken leg and you'll always see that it was broken, but it can heal over time and get stronger, where you build in that resiliency, I think is kind of where we have to get ourselves and as a community make sure that we support each other to get there, and realize that there are ways to heal that are not just based off of talk therapy and taking big pharma drugs. So good luck moving forward. And Jo Ann, I'm wondering from here, where do you see, like, what's the vision for ketamine therapy and the other modalities of therapy that you're looking at? So, we can understand just where this could potentially go in the next few years.
Yeah, I'll definitely get to that. There's a couple of things I want to just talk about too that he brought up that I think is great. And when you talked about the cultures with policing and the veterans, yes, there's totally a different kind of set of cultures there for sure. So a couple things that people need to understand about ketamine is that it's not addictive, right? So it's not addictive in this form of therapy. So you're not going to go into ketamine IV sessions and then a week later be wanting it again. That doesn't happen. There are studies in the United States where ketamine IV is actually being used to treat the addiction to ketamine, which sounds bizarre.
Oh, interesting.
But there's a couple of doctors that are doing it. I mean, it's very early stages. And yeah, I forgot to mention too that ketamine IV can be really good for addictions as well. So I think addiction, I mean, a whole other podcast, but I think addictions comes from the trauma within people. And if you can get to the root of the trauma, sometimes I think the addictions can hopefully be solved, right? So ketamine IV can be really great for that. Another thing that P mentioned as well, yeah, there is tops up for ketamine IV, and that is individual. So someone can have ketamine IV and be great for 6 months and not need a top up, or could go for a year, or could go for weeks. It really just depends. The great thing about ketamine IV for veterans is that even the top ups are covered, the cost and everything like that, that's all covered. With first responders, this is, again, kind of what you were talking about, advocating and getting the right people on board. I've talked to like OPP, insurance companies, as well as some other police companies, insurance companies. And when police officers do their collective bargaining, they need to kind of push for ketamine IV to be covered in their insurance cost. So it's not like the insurance won't do it. It's not something that's ever been requested from them. So once I think this becomes bigger and the statistics show that, yes, this can prevent suicide. That's the number one thing that ketamine IV does, is reduce the suicidality in somebody within the first session. 80% of people, again, will feel that reduction, right? And that's
I can attest to that one for sure, that my suicidality was gone and it hasn't returned.
Wow.
Right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And that's the biggest thing, right? Like, that is, to me, I feel like if people feel like they're not a burden to, like, from my own experience, when I was suicidal, I was just like, I felt like I was a burden to everybody, right? And that everybody would be better off without me. And even talking about it, I can still get emotional, even though it was years ago. But it did come back for me as well. And that's the thing with PTSD, right? Like, you're working through your life and you're doing great. Like, you say you're doing great, and then 1 or 2 days, all of a sudden something will happen, and it could be something so minor. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Right? So the fact that it can take that feeling away, I think is huge. So moving forward, what do I see with, I joke around with people that ketamine should be in our drinking water, like fluoride is, right? Because it won't make anything worse. And hey, you feel really good about stuff. But my biggest thing, and obviously, like, I used to be a high school teacher for 10 years and then policing, and now I do this. So I obviously really want to help people. And I feel like ketamine IV and getting that out there and getting people to understand what's going on and how it can really help people is one of my biggest goals. So I just really hope that there's more understanding about it, more advocacy around it, more people are willing to talk about it. I mean, I have no problem talking about the fact that I have PTSD. I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm not ashamed. It's life. It happens. It is what it is, right? So I'm more than happy to talk about that. And if there is a modality out there that's going to help somebody and help their family, that's the biggest thing too. Like, I bet you, P, right, your relationships probably have improved, I would assume, with loved ones, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
And I mean, even talking to P, I didn't realize, I think it was until she was talking about going away on a trip, how much she actually hadn't left her house. And now whenever I'm talking to her, it's like, I'm going here. She's always going somewhere, which is great. So, I mean, it just improves the person's life as well as those around them. And I think, VAC does not cover ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, right? That's a specific type of psychotherapy, but that's, for what my understanding is, talking to all the psychologists and psychotherapists, is that's just understanding how the chemical effects of ketamine works on somebody's brains and the physical aspect of it. So we provide psychotherapy, which is covered by VAC, right? But I'm hoping one day, VAC and all these other insurance companies will get on board and say, yes, like, we need to cover that as well. So for first responders in our program, their ketamine IV is not covered, but their psychotherapy is. And if I can just talk quickly about cost for first responders, it's not ridiculous. It's we charge about, I think it's about $3,400 for your prep sessions, all your ketamine sessions, and then your psychotherapy is on top of that, which should be covered. Most police, fire, paramedic associations have great psychotherapy coverage. So for me, it's like a trip for two down to the south, right? To get you better. And then any top-up sessions, I believe, are $500. But that's, you're in a health-approved clinic, you're with a doctor, and it can change your life. So it's something that I think is affordable. And, let's be honest here. Most first responders in Canada are paid quite well, right? So it's nice that you have that option of being able to pay for something that could actually save your life. And we try to do it at a reasonable cost. There are other places where you get the lozengers, which they're $7,500 and you're getting a lozenger, right? So you've got to kind of look at, well, what's the value for money? And for me, the value for money has always been ketamine IV. Veterans Affairs, they pay the doctor and all those people directly. So I'm not 100% sure of the cost there. I just know that there's no cost involved with the veterans at all, except maybe the gas to drive there, right?
Right, which would likely, if they've approved the therapy, would be a gas claim either way.
Yeah. So what we do is we write a letter saying that you cannot drive within 24 hours after receiving the ketamine IV. So you either need an escort or you need to stay in a hotel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
you
makes a lot of
don't want to
sense.
be driving. Yeah, I really see, like, when I was at a Catalyst Summit last year, which was all about psychedelics, Health Canada was there and they were talking to us about psilocybins and how that was supposed to be legal in 2023. Unless they're going to jam it in the next 3 months, I don't see that happening. But I really do believe that if there is something out there that's going to help you, and whether it grows in nature or it grows in lab, let it be available for people. I mean, why are, people's lives and families are being torn apart, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I really find that kind of frustrating. And, P has recommended a few people to me, and I'll talk to them. And, for whatever reason, they just kind of decide not to take that step. And for me, it's just try it. Like, just try it. It can be life-changing. And when P was talking about, the rebirthing scene that she saw and stuff, it sounds like you can't even write that for like a movie script or something. Like, I know it doesn't sound like that's really what can happen, but that is like the stuff that you'll see or the stuff that you feel is the stuff that you obviously need to work through. And the ketamine is just a bit of a kind of like a help. And what we always say too is, and I know I go on, but what I always say too is, like, ketamine can be like the foundation for you, right? You're still going to have to work. You're still going to have to do stuff. Like, that's like, I'm sure P still talks to her therapist, or she still is involved in the first responder groups, and she advocates and everything like that. So yeah, you probably still have to do work, but that's life. I mean, we still have to go to the dentist once a year. We still have to go get our eyes checked, right? It's just,
still have to go to the gym. I gotta work. Can't get away from it.
I'm trying to hit, but I haven't hit it yet. But I will be hitting that hopefully someday.
I got a plan for that, Jo Ann, just so you know. FYI, I got a plan for that.
Okay, you can set me up with a plan, because I used to do kettlebells up until I was like 2 weeks before I gave birth to my first child. I was huge into fitness, but then unfortunately, the side effect of mental illness is you lose it, right? And you just, I remember when I was suffering, opening bills and stuff. Never happened, right? Like, so many things changed in those 3 years. And another thing I learned too, and also at a conference I was at last week too, is that because we're so used as police and veterans having like an end date, or, you're done this case, or, your tour overseas is done, or whatever, we're so used to kind of like having a finish date. And so for me, when everything got sorted with my situation, and I had the EMDR, and I thought, great, I'm good, right? I'm good. Everything got sorted, right? No, it's not like that, right? Like, there's no date where you just say, okay, well, on January 1st, I became better. It's not like that. So,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, like, it's just learning all that. So I thought, oh yeah, when everything was done, I'm going to get back in the gym. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do this. And it's like, nah, it doesn't quite work that way. So anyhow, yeah, I really want to just keep advocating for ketamine IV and getting as many people in, and getting people to talk about their experience, and forming communities where people can go and feel comfortable and able to advocate it. And yeah, psilocybin comes in, great. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what they're going to think of doing it. If it's going to be like in a health clinic as well. I know, obviously, we all know there's underground stuff going on out there. And listen, if it's helping the people, it's helping the people. That's the thing at the end of the day.
Right.
I am glad that we're a little bit more regulated than the States. I mean, you can get ketamine lollipops and stuff in some states.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it's...
Which ones, Jo Ann?
California, I think you can. But again, you don't know what you're getting. You could be getting 5% of that, right? And it's not gonna do much for you. So for someone who has really deep-seated trauma and drug-resistant depression, it's the ketamine IV that's really going to help you out.
Okay, right on.
Yeah,
really promising future, to say the least. So it's going to be cool to see where this goes in the coming years and months. So P, similar question to you. Where do you hope this all goes? Where do you hope this type of therapy, and where do you hope that, you know, your experience can help others and kind of open up their ability to live their lives again?
For me, I just want to live again and be back. Not, I know I'm never going to be back to where I was, but to be able to live again, I do. And this is just from outside people going to the cohort that I go to and mentoring. There was huge comments, and we don't always see the changes in ourselves, even if they're minute. And so many people coming up to me and saying, "You look different. Your face has changed. Everything's changed." And then they start asking more questions. And my hope is just to pass this on to more people and get more people to have help, because I mean, honestly, it is a life changing event, or however you want to call it. I don't experience it, really is, and I really wish everybody would at least just give it a chance, because it can change your life. It really can.
Right.
So I'm hoping to see that it's covered for more people, and that more people can have access to this and are able to heal. That's my whole goal. So by talking to people, I didn't continue it for too long, but I had a Facebook profile where I put everything in as I was going through my journey, so that everybody could understand the actual, right down to what the walls, what you were going to see. I kind of tried to go through that so they could walk with me through the journey and be more comfortable. And I'm happy to go with anyone for the first time as well, and be there for them and support at any point in time. If they need a ride buddy or anything like that, because it is a daunting thing, and it is a drug. And let's face it, we're all, right away you get that stigma going up. And I had the same questions from my daughter. Everybody, like, are you going to be on the street? It's like Jo Ann said, no, there's nothing. Like, I haven't had a ketamine treatment in a bit, and you don't. There's just nothing there as an addiction. It's hard to believe, but there's nothing, and nothing at all. So it's very safe. I find it's very safe. The place that we go to in Markham, it's very comfortable. Everybody's accommodating. Set and setting is perfect. It's very important. I have my own ketamine assisted music. You can have it on Spotify. There's actually lists in there. My suggestion would be to listen to it first, because some of them can be very heightened. And it does take your journey in the music does matter. Let's just put it that way. It does matter. Make sure that you want to have a calming one. But yeah, I just hope that more people get better and have access to this. That's really my thing that I can see in the future. And I advocate for Jo Ann and what she's doing. I think it's fantastic.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. And to know that as more people get access to this type of therapy, there's going to be more advocates for it. Mm-hmm. And
absolutely,
that just creates the snowball effect. And again, everybody's different. So in your case, you notice that psilocybin doesn't work, but ketamine did. And yes, for somebody else, maybe ketamine doesn't work, but ayahuasca does. But if the treatment modalities are there and they're available, then at least you can go on your own journey and you can start the healing process. And I like where we're going with all this. And it's cool that folks like yourself are at the forefront pushing this, so that we can actually have some better treatments out there that aren't just the standard Western model that, like I said earlier, just they're not working. And that's partly why I'm doing what I'm doing here with the podcast, trying to help 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds. I'm focusing on the fitness side of things, and folks like yourself are working on what I call you're the mind mechanics, right? The ones that are trying to get the biochemistry sorted. It's a holistic approach that needs to happen in order to get yourself well and healed up, not just one type of therapy in terms of just going to see your therapist. There has to be a complete and total holistic approach to it. And that's what's cool about talking to folks like yourself. So Jo Ann, any last parting thoughts before we sign off here?
No, I just think, again, the reason why I really focused on an outpatient program is because of the fact that some of the programs for PTSD can be 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Some of them are 3 months. And that's a long time for people to be away from their family, right? So this is a really, I know, as people saying, yeah, it can be daunting to do that. We've had people come in from Ottawa. We've had people come in from the Windsor area. So, it can be a bit of a drive, or however you're going to get there. But for me, I had a lot of police friends who did inpatient residential rehabs at some really well-known places, and it wasn't working. They'd be going back 3-4 times, right? And so for me, it was like, let's look at what can work for you and still let you kind of live your life, right? But as P says, if you're feeling nauseous, we give you a medication for that. But probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, P, but usually within 24 hours, you could go back to work. Like, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
after 24 hours, right? Like you're fine, you're good to go. So yes, it can change your life, but it doesn't have to impact your life where you're away from your family and you're away from your kids and you're away from, any loved one, right? Or you're away from your dogs. Like P has a service dog. She brought her service dog with her. No issues, right? So things like that. That's why I'm trying to create a program for people, or I have created a program for people where, yeah, you can get the help, but it's not the biggest impact on your life with what you're doing. If that makes, you can go to work or you can just go home and do what you normally do some fitness, things like that. So,
fitness. I need fitness.
yeah,
Right.
you might be
My
able
next
to Can you do
Start
a
swinging
break
those.
for us?
Yeah, start swinging those caliber. Absolutely, we can have a chat off camera for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sorry. So if anyone wants more information or wants any help or any kind of like things, I mean, I'm always available. You just go to my website, Healthy Mind. My phone number is on there. You can text me. My email's on there. My Facebook is on there. So you can just reach out and I will help you and get you with the right connections that you need to get. And as I said, with veterans, it's free for you, right? So there's no cost to you. And if you think it might help you, reach out. And if it doesn't, then let's look at different modalities. Dave, you obviously know a lot of people. We put them in touch with other people as well, right? So I think the biggest thing is working with others, collaborating with other people. So we get the help for the people that they need, right?
Right on. Yeah. Just going to put up your Facebook page here so folks can have a
Yeah, you
look.
can just put up my personal one if you like. And then, yeah. And I find you probably find Dave like working on that kind of stuff. Oh, no, that's not me.
Oh, that's not you.
No.
Don't go there, folks. Don't go there.
No. So go to healthymind.ca. That's my website. And then you can, everything will be on there. You'll be good. It's just, yeah.
Okay, let's get this. That's the problem when we do this kind of off the cuff here. A healthy. If I could spell properly, damn my infantry brain. A healthy mind.ca.
Yeah, should come up.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. It could just because it's so new, right? That it's you just probably have to actually put in the www.
Yeah, exactly. Google is like, I don't know about this one. I don't know about this ketamine stuff. We're not gonna put it on page one.
Well, you know what's really interesting is with Google, because of things that were happening in the United States, we cannot advertise ketamine IV, even though it's been a legally approved thing for PTSD. You can't advertise it on Google at all. So that also creates a bit of a difficulty as well, getting the right information out there as well. So even advertising can be a bit of an issue.
There we go. This is it here.
Yes, this is me.
So this is you. This is a nice, clean site that I like a lot. Much better than what we had up 2 seconds ago. So, folks, yeah, definitely, if you're interested, like Jo Ann said, head over to our website. Make sure to inquire about our services. And if you're suffering, there are plenty of new treatment modalities, this being one of them. And there's no need to suffer in silence. So, Jo Ann, hey, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast, having a great chat about what you guys are doing and your experiences. And I wish you all the best luck in the future and continued success. And folks, don't forget, train hard, fight easy. See you on the next one. Peace. I hate t-shirts that get floppy in the arms after 10 washes. So that's why I created a bunch of t-shirts with high quality cotton just for you so that you can go to the gym and look fresh, sport some philosophy, and smash those PRs looking good. So you need to head to davemorrow.net/merch, grab yourself a hat, grab yourself a t-shirt, grab yourself a sweater, and support the cause today.